All right, it is 12 o'clock. How are you, realtors? I am Mel Selko from Home Probe, and I have Jason Taylor here is our guest. I'm very excited because we get to talk about all the things in the sewer.
Oh, yay.
Woohoo! So anyway, sewer scoping is probably the trendiest thing happening in home inspection world right now. We have had clients, we almost sell out every week with since introducing the service. And so today you are going to learn what you need to know about sewer scoping. So 4 things that every agent should know. Before I get there, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we know about home inspection in general. And what we know is that nobody wants the thing we sell, which is a home inspection report. Nobody gets excited by hearing that, guess what? I'm going to give you 50 to 70 pages of stuff that's wrong with the house. But what buyers do want is certainty. They want to know that they're getting the house they think they're getting, and they essentially want to know that they're getting their money's worth. And so we will talk about how the sewer scope helps them get that certainty today. So today, these are the 4 things that we're going back to the journalism school for me, the who, what, where, when, and why. What is sewer scoping? We'll talk about that. We will talk about why home buyers want us to do it. Those are your clients and our clients, who we recommend it for, and what's next in terms of anomalies and limitations and the things that you see in the actual report. So by the end of this webinar, you will be able to really advise your clients or to tell them to call their home inspector to get better advice, but you'll be able to really sort through that report and be able to give them some better information about knowledge that's available to them and whether it would be applicable for their situation or not. So with that, I'm going to let Jason is way smarter about this than I am. Jason, tell us a little bit more about your background, and then tell us a little bit more about sewer scoping.
Wow. So background, I've pretty much been in field operations, whether in construction or maintenance, my entire adult life, and from being either a technician or managing, leading it. And so coming here to Home Probe, I am part of the operations, make sure the trains show up on time. And one of the things we've added is sewer scopes. So that falls under me, and we have a department of guys that go out and do sewer scopes here in South Carolina. What the sewer scope is basically the lateral line that runs from your house out to the main sewer. You can't see that, it's underground. And so we use the camera to go out and observe and take pictures and see what the status is of that line and how it goes, especially since the lateral line is typically the homeowner's responsibility. Okay,
so this is a picture of Chandler literally putting the scope down the clean out.
Yeah, so we enter through a clean out, and that's how you get into it. So as far as steps go, we do a couple things. First thing is find the clean out. That can be a challenge with pine straw. Sometimes it's in the front yard, sometimes it's in the crawl space of the basement. So that's an interesting part of it that you wouldn't think can be an issue. We also measure from the clean out to the street for a reference point. So we have a counter on the camera. We know how far out it is. Just gives you a better understanding of where you're going to before you hit the sewer line. Once we have that done, we'll set up the camera, feed into the clean out. And then the way we do this is we video out to the main sewer, stopping and making notations for anything that we note, whether it's a change of pipe or whether there's something wrong. Then on the way back, we stop and take detailed pictures of that for the report. So we video on the way out, observe on the way out. If you get a video and request a video from us, you'll notice it stops at certain things. And we'll turn around. That's the inspector writing down notes of that footage and what's going on at that footage. On the way back, after we've notated them, we come back and pull the camera back, stop recording, and now start taking pictures for that. We're looking for anomalies, junctions, material changes, that sort of information. Clean up the camera, clean up the work area, make sure everything's good with that, write the report, and then send it out.
Awesome. We do them in the morning or the afternoon.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about what's required from the homeowner. So the person who is the seller, what do we need from them when we do a sewer scope?
We need the only water running to be a sink. Any type of sink is fine. Draining bathtubs, washing clothes, flushing toilets, as you can imagine, can be an issue. So no water use except for sink usage. And most of the time we'll go in and run water, or ask them to run a small trickle of water, which helps give you orientation, up and down orientation as you're running the camera through. Because as the camera goes through the line, it can crawl up the walls a little bit and make it a little confusing as to where you are.
Okay, so if you're trying to make this convenient for the seller, for those of you buyer's agents, then you would want this done at the same time as the inspection, because usually the seller leaves the house, and then we can work with our own team in terms of making sure that we're using the water the right way, but it can be done afterwards. So sometimes something shows up on the inspection, and Jason, you're going to talk about that later. And so it can be done later as well. We deliver those reports next day?
Next day by 10 a.m. And the actual time of it varies how long we're on site. But if you look at 2.5 hours from the time of arriving to going through, finding the clean out, doing the inspection and closing the clean out back up, you're pretty safe to let the seller know 2.5 hours is about the time of what it'll take us.
All right, very good. So I got to follow Chandler as one of our field service techs. I got to follow him doing one, and it was really fun. And I took a video so that you could see a little bit in what the camera looks like as it is being used. So now you're going to see how bad I am at Zoom as I go from one screen to another. So bear with me for just a moment. But I'm going to share this video of the sewer scope camera so you can get a little better idea of what's going on here. So here is
piece of equipment. It's the Waller Viz 350, and we utilize this camera because it has a pan and tilt head, which allows us to see a lot more than you normally would from a traditional camera head that doesn't move. And then
what does that mean? It moves around?
Yeah, it moves around
flexible?
To give us, it's flexible. And the pan and tilt portion is this portion of the camera, which we can turn with these buttons. So a traditional camera head would not be able to see into corners, to see up and down. It would just be looking straight ahead. So our camera has the capability to look around corners, look up and down at different angles to see important things like cracking or offsets or any pipe bends or anything like that. It can look into where those may be coming from. Like, let's say we come to a T, you can look to the left or right and establish which direction the sewer line's running. So that's a really important aspect of this camera, is that it has that capability. And also it has great visibility. So the visibility on this camera is very high quality, which is very important when looking for things like those cracks and separations that you might not otherwise see.
So that was Chandler explaining the camera, which I think is really helpful information. Now let me go back to my screen that I wanted to share with you. All right, so give me just a second. All right, Jason, let's go back to you. Tell us how this is different than the home inspection. Why is this a separate event?
Well, so on a normal home inspection, we can identify that there's cast iron. Sometimes the cast iron is changed up to the house or inside the house, and yet it's still in the yard. So we can identify that you have cast iron. If you look in this picture, we can identify there's a leak, but we can't tell you what's going on inside of it, and we can't tell you what's going on under the ground.
So when it leaves the house, we can't see it anymore.
From the house to the sewer line, it's anybody's guess, and that's there's no information to provide you to make a decision on.
So this is what we used to say when we saw cast iron. We didn't have availability for anything more than this, which is essentially you have an expensive repair coming your way, maybe sometime in the future. And so how does sewer scoping change that?
Well, it gives you actual visual, I want to say facts, but reference points to look at it and say, hey, there is more than just I have cast iron and it needs to be fixed immediately, or someday or in the future. You can see how much, if it's cast iron and it's scaling, if it's cracked, you're actually able to look at that and make a much better informed decision on what you need to do. You can also take that information, go to an independent plumber or a plumber that is a vendor recommendation by us and say, here's what I've seen. What do I do with it? And get good information.
So we're trying to change, we can't change the fact that you have cast iron. The sewer scope doesn't change that, but it helps us with this unpredictable piece to give you a little bit more information on the condition of that cast iron and when you might expect problems. Because why do people want us to do this, Jason? Nobody wants to see it inside their sewer, right? Why are people wanting us to do this?
Well, because nothing bad ever happens at 10 o'clock in the morning on a work day when you have the ability to go fix it. Nobody wants sewage backing up into your shower when something bad happens, or for that matter, other places, right? Out of your washing area, your laundry area, or whatever. And it's easier to plan for something and know it's coming than to have a unexpected, now we have to have somebody tear up my yard, dig all this up, and it's all reactionary, panic, high stress, instead of a planned event.
High stress and messy. I think
messy.
You combine the two worst things for new homeowner surprises, gross and expensive. So that's why people want to know about the sewer scope. So we're essentially trying to find a couple of, we'll show different examples, but tell us what we're trying. If there's nothing wrong, what are we seeing with the sewer scope? What is in the report?
So at the very least, if there's nothing wrong, you're going to know what material you have. You're going to understand if it was installed correctly. For instance, if you dig a trench and your trench is not even, and then you lay a pipe in there, if you have a low spot or that's not compacted even, you're going to have ups and downs in your pipe. So you're going to understand how it's installed and also the condition. If you didn't put two pipes together correctly, you're going to be able to see that. And then you're going to find your obstructions, your roots that are growing into cracks, obstructions, stuff that gets caught in there.
Let's start looking at some of the fun stuff that we find. So what's this?
So this is a crushed pipe. Whether it was a piece of equipment driving over it, compacted incorrectly, that pipe's crushed. What's going to end up happening eventually is you're going to get some sort of debris stuck in there, and then it builds up, and then you have a blockage and a backup.
So this oval is the shape.
Yeah, so that should be round. Yeah, that should be round.
Ooh, what's this?
This is cast iron, and cast iron as it gets older scales. This is the clearest example I could find, but we have found examples of a 4-inch pipe with about a 1-inch hole in it because the scale built up so much. As you can imagine, eventually something's going to clog up in that, and then you have all your bad things happening.
All right, what's this?
So this is a picture of PVC changing to cast iron. And really that's informational. It's good to know that that's there, so you understand that in the future you have something. As I said, a lot of times in the past, we'll have an inspection report, and the home inspector has to be really diligent to note that, hey, they cut off the cast iron at the foundation wall as it came in, and they put PVC there. It all looks like PVC now, but in reality, they didn't dig up the yard. The cast iron's still going out there, and you still have that potential liability or problem.
Those are some of the stories I'm hearing when I go to real estate offices, is particularly with the rehabs and the renovations. So you take an older house, you put it down to its studs, you replumb it, and then the homeowner moves in, and now there's a lot of stress on that plumbing system from the house to the street. And so new homeowners, home buyers, as they move in, are having issues related there, which I'm sure you'll get to when we talk about our recommendations. The one that I went to with Chandler was actually the agent told us that one of the things they were concerned about, it was one of these newer renovations, and they wanted to know, there was a long front yard. I think it was almost 100 feet from the house to the street. And they wanted to know if the pipe changed. And sure enough, it did. It was pretty close to the street where it changed, but they didn't take the PVC all the way. So, and I even saw in some of our reports, clay.
Yeah, there's clay out there, cast iron, obviously PVC.
Interesting. All right. So more fun things we find.
So this is just a close-up of a crack, and I mean, self-explanatory. Two things can happen with a crack. One, it can continue, it's pressure that's making that crack. It can continue to crack and separate, and you can actually end up with a break. But the other thing is roots. So roots are growing through cracks. So the chicken or the egg, what comes first? Depends. Sometimes the crack's going to come and a root can go through it, and sometimes roots will break through it searching for water.
Okay, because trees want water.
Yep.
And
Constant flow.
Even though we don't necessarily think about what's coming out of the sewer line as nutritious, a tree would. Let's talk about bellies.
So spoke about this a little bit before. If you don't compact your trench when you're running your line and it's not correct, or just do not that great of a job of keeping it level, what ends up happening, you see in the top picture the way it's supposed to be, nice slope. In your middle picture, you don't have enough slope, but in talking about bellies, if you look at the bottom picture, what ends up happening is that section of pipe will go down. So two things happen out of that. One, standing water, potential clog points, and two, you'll get, we're going to show you in a second, what's called an offset. As that pipe is kind of pulled apart, they don't line up correctly, which then creates like a lip that,
like over here, it would be.
Yeah, where they connect, creates a lip where things can get stuck. And then once one thing is stuck, it moves on and gets larger.
Okay. And we're also asking the water to run uphill a little bit from the belly.
Yes, so that's what happens is it'll only flow over the top. Heavy things will fall on the bottom, sit in your valley there, or your belly, and then you're constricting how much flow can go through there.
Okay. Water does not like to go uphill. I have learned that.
And this is just a picture of a belly, and you can see that the camera's off a little bit on an angle, but half of the camera, it's 1.5 inch camera head. So a portion of the camera is underwater. So you can see the belly when you're going through. The picture's a little bit more difficult, but you obviously see the standing water.
Okay. And we give them the foot range. Is that
correct? So we're given the foot range from the clean out. And the purpose of that is we're not here to tell you how to fix something or what exactly needs to be done. We're given the information, and that information can be taken to a plumber, and that way they can be a little bit more focused on their repairs for you.
okay? And so if you wanted to see more, so the belly is not as easily seen by still picture as it is by a video.
It depends. Sometimes there are bellies that are pretty bad, and we have to pull the camera back to get a picture where you can see that it's not underwater the whole time. So it really just depends. But we also have videos upon request. We don't send them out with each report because not everybody wants them. And you get enough information through the pictures. But if you want the video, we can send you the video.
Okay. So this is what you were talking about, an offset. This is what it looks like in a
correct
diagram.
So yeah. So what ends up happening, and you'll see the dirt washed away underneath that. But either way, one pipe, normally the male part, well, it doesn't really matter, but one pipe will start falling down, which then breaks the little bit of the other pipe. But in the beginning, you'll see a lip as you go through with the camera, and you know that that's a problem that's happening.
And do those tend to continue? Like once it starts offsetting, is it like a retaining wall that starts falling?
That's a tough one. Yes, but not scientifically. I can't give you the mathematical formula for that, but I can tell you that if a tree starts falling, it's eventually going to fall. If a retaining wall starts falling, eventually it's going to fall. No way to put a time frame to it though.
Okay. it's a little bit, it sounds like a little bit like structure is like, the whole point is not to move.
Correct.
And so once these pipes start, they weren't meant to move.
Correct.
All right, so this is what it looks like in the camera.
Yeah, so this is an offset that's actually gotten buildup. And so what has happened is all the arrows on the bottom pointing to the bottom, you can actually see that, well, they didn't line up correctly. And this is stuff that's building up at the offset,
Okay.
which will then constrict your available space to flow material.
What's this?
This part of a root. And you see them a lot. And one of the things that surprised me is how much, when we started this, is how much root growth we actually see. It's pretty common.
It's fascinating to me because I'd heard of it, but to actually see the roots coming in there, I was like, wow, pretty interesting. Another obstruction?
Yeah, and we couldn't get past this one, so we're not gonna, it's not a bulldozer, it's an inspection camera, so we'll come up to something. If we can't get past it, that's what's happened. So this one here where the red arrow is, there is something in there. It is blocking off 2/3 of the pipe. It's stuck there, and that has to be fixed. You're going to be fine, maybe for certain things, but once you get to a certain point, nothing's going to go past it.
All right.
Just a close-up picture of more debris and blockage in the pipes, keeping you from going through.
What's this?
So this was found here pretty recently. We ran an inspection, came up to a T, and believe it or not, that I wouldn't say little guy. I think the pipe we were in was a 6-inch pipe. I don't know how big that cross pipe is, but that's a fairly decent sized fella.
I suggested that maybe our FST needed some hazard pay.
Yeah,
That pretty scary. All right, so let's talk about, oops, yep, that's where we are. So those are the types of things we see, which I thought was the most important piece. Let's talk about when do we recommend sewer scoping for everyone? And if not, when is it a good idea?
So we don't recommend it for everyone. If you want it and it's peace of mind, that's what you're getting with that. If you don't have any issues, but truly we recommend it on 20-year or older house. That's the one most likely to have had cast iron in it.
Okay.
Obviously, if we see cast iron, absolute recommendation, just so you know, or at least can make some informed decisions on how long you have. Trees in the front yard, in between the house and the main sewer, we've seen that to be a very, root growth, a very common problem. And we see that. And also signs of recent repairs. And you would think that if there's recent repairs there, it doesn't make sense to sewer scope. But what we're noticing is people aren't fixing the entire line. If you have 40 feet between your front of your house and the street, and there's something found, they're fixing 10 feet, 8 feet. We have one we just went back to, and there was a root growth in it that was so large we couldn't get past it at 20 feet. They fixed from 18 feet to 24 feet. We came back out. The buyer asked us to come back out and verify and see if we could go all the way to the street, and we couldn't do it. We were able to go another 15 feet and hit more problems, and there are still roots in there. So signs of recent repairs may seem kind of, I don't know, counterintuitive to go scope it, but it makes a lot of sense because everybody's doing the bare minimum. Not everybody, a lot of people are doing the bare minimum.
Right, you're fixing the first problem you see,
And
not
stopping right
necessarily all of the problems. All right. So number 2 and number 4 are sometimes things we don't see until we get to the inspection. I know a lot of home buyers don't have much time in the houses that they're buying. So how do we report if at the inspection we see something that tells us maybe you want more information about this?
So we have an observation or recommendation if we see any of these items to let you know that, hey, you might want to get a sewer scope. We've seen signs of recent repairs. There's cast iron and you should take a look at it. So that'll be in your home inspection report.
In the plumbing section?
Yes.
Okay, great. And some of these people know ahead of time, or sometimes, me as a buyer, so my house, when we had company come for New Year's is when our plumbing lines went out. So I now would never buy a house without having a sewer scope. So different buyers have different risk tolerances. If you've never heard me talk about that, I'll direct you to somewhere on our website where you can get more information. Let's look at, these are the descriptive pieces of the report. These are the things you're going to see in a report, even if none of the other stuff that needs attention is there. These are things you will see. Our point of entry, why do we take a picture of that?
Really, it's peace of mind for everyone. We take a picture of the point entry. There you go. Most of the time, finding it is rough for us. If you have a report with a picture, maybe you save somebody else down the line a little bit of time. We take a picture also once the cap's put back on, as two things. One, make sure we didn't mess anything up and forget. Two, but peace of mind for everyone. At the very least, if there are no problems, what you're going to get out of a sewer report is where we went in, and then your before and after pictures of your clean out. And then you're going to get every pipe junction. So if you start in PVC and then at 20 feet, it goes to clay. And then at 30 feet, it goes to cast iron. Then at 40 feet, it goes back to PVC. You're going to get a picture and a location of every one of those junctions just so you know what's underneath your ground. And then you'll get a picture of the furthest point scoped, which in most cases is going to be the main.
Okay,
sewer
so
line.
this just tells us we were able to get all the way to the main
Correct.
sewer line. All right. So tell us when does somebody want this and we can't deliver this product for them?
So the things that we run into, we go out to do a sewer scope. We'll run into times with no clean out. Either we can't find it. It's buried under, mulch. And nobody knows where it is, where we're gonna have to dig up a yard, or there's a bush planted right on top of it, and we're just not gonna do that kind of destructive stuff. Frozen clean out plugs. You get a cast iron clean out plug that has been there for, 20 years that's rusted together, and we can't get the clean out plug. A plumber, somebody else can cut into it. The homeowner can cut into it, cut it out, and replace it. We're not going to do that because it's destructive. You start getting into clean outs that are less than 3 inches in diameter. It doesn't happen much, but every once in a while you'll see 1.5 inches clean out put in. We just can't get our camera in there to make the bend. And when you have clean outs more than 100 foot apart, code says they should be 100 foot apart. If we run more than that, there may be a portion because of bends and slope where you can't get to that next clean out. Or if you have a 200 foot line with no clean outs, we're only going to be able to go that 100 feet. T junctions, like where we saw our friend at, the camera can't make a hard right. It has to be a pipe bend in order to make that transition, or to travel across that. And then once you start getting into multiple bends, 3, 4, 90-degree bends, as it goes through, we run into problems being able to go any further than that. And then obviously obstructions, root growth, large offsets. We have 1.5 inch camera head. You'll see pictures where you have 1 inch of offset, and the camera just can't jump over that. Clogs, extreme scaling where the pipe is closed down too far for the camera to get through.
Okay, so in those cases, what do you do? Just you're out of luck?
Absolutely credit your money back. Okay. And then we're going to recommend Slam Plumbing. We have a vendor that does good work. They've done good work for us, or for our clients, for quite a while. And they're able to do some things that we can't, whether it's pull a toilet, whether it's go through a vent stack. They're plumbers. We're not.
They're the specialists.
Yes.
We are the generalists. Speaking of Slam Plumbing, one of the things that I am like is like, oh, wow, now that we have this report and our clients and our agents are getting this report, what do we do with it? And we're again not plumbers. And so we have invited Slam Plumbing and they have accepted our invitation. We're just working on dates to come in and do a webinar on all of those things Jason showed you that we find, minus the rodents. What do they recommend, and what are some of the options in terms of, they don't all require a tractor coming to your front yard, and but they're able to speak about that better. So watch for an email about when that webinar is scheduled. We do these every Wednesday. So we're going to put them on our Wednesday schedule, and you'll be able to ask your questions about repairs to sewer scoping. And also speaking about these, what we call level 2 inspections, or the value adds that we have in addition to the regular home inspection. It seems like the buyer trend continues to increase in terms of the more they pay for the house, the more they want to know about the house, even if the seller is not going to do anything about it. And so we are seeing, as a company, our radon numbers, that buyers wanting radon tests, mold tests, and thermal imaging growing in leaps and bounds. So we've got some webinars about that. We're at close to 70% of clients that want to do radon testing. And so we have a webinar about how to manage that as the real estate agent in the transaction. We've got a webinar with Jeff Luther, who owns the company, talking about how mold does not need to be a 4-letter word, and how you can talk to your clients about mold before the issues come up in the house, so that that doesn't have to be a scare tactic. And look, in the next month, HomeProbe is also going to start offering IAQ testing. And then finally, this is Elvira, the thermal pug. So thermal imaging, more and more people are wanting to be able to see. The great thing about thermal imaging is we're actually able to identify something before it grows into a giant problem, where you can fix it at a much less expensive route. So I'm going to send you the recordings of this webinar, in addition to these other 3 webinars, the link to the recordings in a confirmation email. So check them out when you have a minute, and you'll know a lot more about how to advise your clients. And my favorite question that you all, I'm sure, were about to ask me, if you haven't put it in the chat, is what's the best way to schedule at HomeProbe? And so the answer to that, if you want to work with us because we have shown you what great work we do and how dedicated we are to really quality product, you can go to email us at info@home-probe.com. You can call our local phone numbers, or just go to the website and call whatever number is there. And the people who answer the phone work for us as a company. And then you can also schedule online. You just click this little blue button at home-probe.com. Any of those ways are great ways to schedule, and we will hold your inspection times for you as you're negotiating your contract, so that you can get in lickety split. So I'm going to go to the chat and see if there are any other questions. It looks like we had audio difficulties. You'll be able to see it on the replay. Any questions about sewer scoping itself? We must have answered all the things.
Wow.
So we'll offer this webinar again in the next couple of months, because you'll be having more access to it. Oh, is there an additional charge? Great question. I forgot to talk about the charge, Lauren. We do charge for sewer scoping. It is $265 in addition to the home inspection, if we're doing it with an inspection. If we're not doing it, meaning you ordered an inspection from us, it doesn't have to be at the same time. If you just want your sewer line scoped, it's $365. So we have a trip fee associated with that. And I think both of those prices are still less expensive than the plumbers.
Correct.
So anyway, we hear our inspector, Steve Fish, always says peace of mind is cheap. And so if you think about the cost of having this done when something goes wrong, that creates a problem. Yes, you can expect an email with a link to this video, and I would love it if you shared it with your clients. The more information they get from you and from me than their best friend Google, I think the better off real estate is as a whole. So, all right, it was good to see everybody. We will see you at classes to come, and take care and go make some good real estate happen. Thanks, everybody.